Hello, I'm Dylan Skybrook, and this week we're talking about mindfulness, purpose, and vision. So mindfulness is the ability to be present to what is happening with you or with a situation. And the ability to do it means that you're aware of how you are responding, and that kind of thing. Bill O'Brien, the CEO of Hanover Insurance, he says, the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. In other words, let's say you're a consultant, you're brought into an organization to help them communicate and listen to one another, but let us also say that you are not a very good listener and interrupt people all the time. If that is the case, you are unlikely to be effective at helping other people listen. You're not going to be able to impart those qualities if you do not possess them. This week we're reading two of Otto Scharmer's articles, and he talks about investigating the inner state from which we operate and make decisions. Do we make decisions based on presuming we already know the answer? Or do we have the capacity to drop down and actually listen to what is going on in whatever situation we're dealing with? Well, that's something like mindfulness, the ability to drop down and listen and do that. And so Otto Scharmer's talking a bit about it very specifically in how to make things happen in the world and what kind of capacities one needs. So the first point in this week then is that there's something about listening, about being mindful, the capacity to not make assumptions. That's very important. It's almost a physical capacity to actually relax and be open to what is. A couple months ago, I saw Mathieu Ricard speak. He's a French man, but he's a Tibetan Buddhist monk. And someone asked him about life purpose. And he said, really, all there is sitting still and not trying to do anything and seeing what arises. So in a way here he's describing mindfulness, but he's also getting toward purpose because the person asked him about purpose. And so it's kind of like mindfulness is the ability to drop in, and purpose is then what you hear when you listen, or one of the things that you could hear. And this reminds me of a great article in the Harvard Business Review called Building Your Company's Vision. And in that article, it talks about purpose as something that must be discovered. It's not something that you do some math problems about and you figure out what the purpose is. Purpose is already true. And it's something that you just have to find out by feeling into what you're about, what the company's about. You have to be able to hear it, in other words. And perhaps it's a matter of noticing what you or your project are already up to. It's a matter of discovery. And it's perhaps just a small voice that you hear at first. But what you're already hearing, what's already happening, that leads you towards really feeling what purpose is. Purpose is a fundamental driver for human beings. We really need to feel like we're doing something meaningful. It's one of the ways, the primary ways that we feel satisfied, is that we have a purpose, we have something meaningful to do or to achieve. And I really feel like there's kind of no well-being ultimately without purpose. Purpose is the why. Why do you do things? What drives you? In that same Harvard Business Review article, Building Your Company's Vision, which is a great article, totally recommend it, it talks about how companies who have an articulated purpose are around longer, they last longer. They also have employees that stay with them longer because the employees are more satisfied. And that helps with turnover costs. They don't have to train people as much, and they don't have to train the employees that stay there as often either. Because people feel a purpose and they can become aligned to that purpose and work with it and feel their own meaning from it. It's also great for the company because if they have a purpose, they hire people who fit with that purpose. Conversely, companies that don't have an articulated purpose, they don't last as long and they don't get any of the benefits that the other companies do. So it's very important. You can kind of feel it, right? A company that knows what it's about and then hires people who are also about that. And they all stay together and do the same project for a while. And part of the reason I bring this up is that purpose is a subjective thing, perhaps, that you feel, but it has objective effects. So it, a sense of purpose helps a company actually make more money or less money, or it works better with employees who like to be there or not. So it's a very important and even quantifiable thing, ultimately, in some ways. So the ability to listen and be mindful helps you hear. Purpose is what you hear when you drop down. And the next thing about that is then you have to come up with a way to, what comes from the purpose. So you need a vision, something to achieve. You need the actual goals to do it. So my purpose that I feel very strongly right now is that I want to help people develop an interconnected worldview. Understanding the world as a unity, that there's lots of relationships there, lots of connections, and that can be a lens that helps people move towards sustainability, equity, and well-being. So if that's my purpose, then I might have a vision for ways to go about that. And one way I might go about that is to create an online learning module about complex systems, which in fact I have done, and we're reading some of those in this course. And so if I ran an organization, my goal might be that enough people understand systems and complexity that that's how we make our decisions in that organization, that's the lens. But there has to be some way to move from the listening to the feeling of a sort of general overall purpose to get into specificity, and that's vision or goals. Donella Meadows, she talked about choosing goals as one of the highest leverage points for change. Because as soon as you have a goal, the system orients and organizes itself around that goal. So it's incredibly important. So a hospital that its primary stated purpose is to help people heal creates one kind of organization from that goal. A for-profit hospital that's primary purpose is to make money, a completely different organization, different staff, different everything is going to form around that goal. So it's really important to figure out what your goal is, what your vision is. Robert Fritz, he's a great author, highly recommend him. And he talks about structural tension. And so this is the diagram here for structural tension. He talks about becoming aware of your current reality, but also what your vision is. So you know what you want, but you're also clear about where you are. But you keep your eye on the vision, and that acts like a rubber band that actually brings your current reality toward the vision. And he talks about this as important because what we tend to do, we're trying to lose weight, or we're trying to build a building, or whatever it is, that if we don't have that vision, we can get into what he calls an oscillating pattern. So I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. I feel very, a lot of drive to do that. But then I lose 3 pounds, and I'm like, pretty good, and I feel a lot less stress. And because I'm only being moved by my stress at this point, I relax back. But maybe I gain the weight again, so then I try to, right, and so it's oscillating. It's like a rocking chair. He is a composer, and so he thought about how artists work, that they have something that they have to do. They have a show that they have to get, the music written for, or the dance made for, or whatever. And so there's a vision that is sort of enforced, and that he talks about that as a good model for people trying to get things done. So vision, to really hew to it, very important. So there's a lot to consider here. We have our state. Are we mindful? Can we listen? Can we drop down? Can we make decisions based on listening rather than thinking that we know what's happening already? If we have that capacity, when we listen, can we discover our purpose or our organization's purpose? And then finally, can we have a strong vision with goals that we can move toward and really get things done? And all of these things together, our well-being depends on. And our feeling of satisfaction depends on it too. The capacity to do these things, mindfulness, purpose, and vision, is highly associated with our own well-being. Being mindful, for instance, is associated with being resilient, because you're able to actually deal with emotionally with the constant stream of change that being alive is. You're present to it, it doesn't run you, you're able to see it and choose how to deal with it in some way. The discovery of purpose then is dependent to some degree on your ability to be in a listening, mindful state. And the development of goals then is the fruition of purpose, as I said earlier. And not only is that personally satisfying and about personal well-being, but doing all three of these steps is also how we actually move forward towards something good. It's how society can innovate and move towards a more sustainable and equitable society as well. So that's what we're thinking about this week. So think about these things as you're reading the various articles and doing the assignments. Thanks very much.